And please help me welcome Secretary of U.S. Department of Transportation, Orlando Teller.
Raise your hand if you don't appreciate the little twist that Isaac has sent us on changing seats. Isn't that just with our father's son? Too early for that right in the morning. Coffee hasn't quite kicked in yet. Good morning, Yat Ebene. Sheya Orlando Teller and Shia, Nash Ejidanet, Hachi in Shlon Tohead Lee Bashin. Torchini Dashiche, Doshin, Dashinada Ekut Alderenshia. Ado Shea Aisinasha H. Enten Wilge. Shma A. Claraton Wilgandan A. Istashanadan Alvandan. Shija Anderson Teller Wilgandan. A. Natasha Tindan Alvandan. A. Adashia Hoa. I appreciate this opportunity. I introduced you formally in all 4 clans. My late mother, Clara Nunn, was from a small community called Valley Shore. Her clan was Zuni people adopted into the Red Street Forehead clan. My late father was Anderson Teller, also from the Chinle region, born and raised in the canyon of Canyon del Muerto. So I am literally from rural community. I am from the res, born and raised, proud of it. Education was fantastic, life was fantastic and is fantastic. My position as your Deputy Assistant Secretary for Tribal Affairs is a critical and crucial position for not only tribes, but in all honesty, rural communities. The same issues that occur, as I heard yesterday, are the same issues that are being challenged, that challenge the reservations, the tribal nations, not only in this great state of New Mexico, but in Indian country throughout the United States. From the tip of Florida to the tip of Alaska, all the way to the territories throughout Indian country. Challenges are being expressed and addressed. And so my job has been not only a phenomenal opportunity, but at one point, an overwhelming opportunity. Let me tell you, I remember sitting at home and thinking, how am I going to do this? Then I thought about something someone said in school, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's what it takes. What also helps is teamwork, working with a phenomenal partnership as I have here with Roger Montoya and Isaac. With that, I sincerely appreciate this invite to this very interactive dialogue on Rural Summit in New Mexico. Thank you, Representative Montoya. Thank you, Isaac. Thank you to the rural and tribal leadership that are here today and yesterday. I heard your challenges, the transit challenges, other challenges, funding and resource challenges. I wrote them down. I emailed my team back in DC. Regarding the rural transit program, Mr. Mortensen, Mayor, where are you sitting? There you are. See, I was looking over there. It's Isaac's fault. Yeah, I'm looking for you. No, the administrator is getting involved to make sure that we contact you on putting together a roundtable regarding rural transit.
Be happy to champion.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So discussions such as that, as little as they may seem to you, but it's important to your constituents, right? And those are the people that really, really deserve the services that are available. So we just welcomed in a new generational opportunity, the passing of the bipartisan infrastructure. And we're all waiting to see how that impacts our community's livelihood. For tribes, I know there were some tribes here yesterday, but they're probably listening, and I appreciate that. $3 billion for the tribal transportation program. $1 billion for their bridges, $150 million for their high priority projects, 230 million to tribal transit. This also opens up the dialogue of the Tribal Transportation Assistance Program, reestablishing to 7 locations. Raising the Office of Tribal Government Affairs and elevating my position to the Assistant Secretary for Tribal Government Affairs. These are all within the bill. In addition to my activity as your Deputy Assistant Secretary, I've been working closely with the White House Council on Native American Affairs. I'm the point of contact for DOT, ensuring and addressing and advocating for not just tribal issues, but rural issues. In fact, this morning, I was on a call this morning with the White House Council, letting them know that the unfunded mandate, where's he at? Unfunded mandate issue needs to be part of our conversations when we dialogue with congressional delegation. Along with that, those unfunded mandates that really prohibit small communities, rural communities, that affect their general fund, that affect their quality of service, is the matching. Yesterday I heard briefly that the federal match grants are they can sometimes wipe out the general funds, or communities, small rural communities, are shy to apply for a grant because of the match. So that conversation, again, part of the unfunded mandate conversation will be part of my presentation to congressional delegations come June. So those conversations I heard yesterday. Folks came up to me and pulled on my ear, which I appreciate. Once in a great while, as professionals, we need a little fire in our behind, right? We get the job done that way. And a community member that we know will do that for us. And for today and for yesterday, it's all of you. So your message is being sent forward to the DOT. And the advantage of my position, regardless of the party or the community, my position has access to all modes: FAA, FTA, FRA, PHMSA, Federal Highway. So I have, fortunately, the ability to go directly to those administrators and talk about the issues such as FTA, Federal Transit Administration discussions regarding Mr. Mortenson's concern. So back to the White House Council, some of the issues and some of the challenges and some of the items that I presented for the council was a tribal aviation symposium. Now that may not mean much here, but for us tribes, particularly in New Mexico, and I'm sure with Las Vegas Airport this means a lot, that those rural airports are literally our lifeline sometimes. I had my grandmother, my late grandmother, and my uncle flown out of Chinle Airport late at night, rather than driving 4 hours one way in an ambulance. That golden hour that we talk about, that is shared with us by medical professions. In rural communities, that's a luxury, right? You add the weather, you add the road condition, you add the predicament. That 15 minutes or more is really precious to our loved ones that is in the care of the ambulance, first responders. It also dictates how first responders respond, if not rescuers respond to our family members or community members that are needing the help. So understanding that is really important to this aviation symposium, which was successfully conducted, and now the FAA will continue this symposium next year and the following year and the year after that. In addition to the symposium, presented the Rural Electric Vehicle Toolkit, which might be really interesting to showcase here in New Mexico with the conversations I heard yesterday. That means that Mr. Mortenson, right off 25, can host an EV charging station or have that conversation with DOT You shared that earlier. And there will be a toolkit, little package for you to do A, B, C, and D, who, what, when, where, how. That will be launched soon. We had a soft launch, we had a presentation, and so that information is readily available as soon as I jump off this and get on the computer and send it off to Mr. Lawrence and other folks who are interested. We also had a safety campaign throughout Indian country, which still is part of our conversation here, rural safety programs. I met with several RPOs, NPOs, COGs. I love RPOs, NPOs, and COGs. They are absolutely vital for rural communities because they can collect a project that addresses a region rather than just one town or tribal nation. It will be a region, and that they can speak and monitor grants on behalf of your communities or together with partnerships. So the safety campaigns are part of that conversations. The discussions of hiring local, with the billions of dollars being released in the bill by bipartisan infrastructure. My conversation to the OSBU, or the Office of DBEs and Business Services, is, excuse me, how do we capture those contracts so that that community can, their community members can be hired to address the improvement, rehabilitation, service. I'm all for economic development. You know, when a contract comes into my town, the workers stay at the hotel, buy the gas, buy the food, as long as they want, as long as the project is. So there's a quick stimulation in the economy for that local community, my community of Chinle. But then I ask myself, why can't we hire our own folks? And I'm not talking the blue collar folks, which is great. I'm talking about our own attorneys, our own civil engineers, our own professionals to that contract. So that conversation is being had. It'll be presented at 2 weeks at the Reservation Economic Summit in Las Vegas. And so those are some of the activities that my office has been conducting, aside from ensuring that the tribal consultation is maintained and meaningful and dutiful. And I get my ears, pulled by some elders. What does meaningful mean to you? That's a question I would like to ask to all the rural communities here. What does meaningful discussion mean to you? Does that mean we just write down and leave, you don't see us again? For me, that's no. I want to come back and check on and follow up, talk to Mr. Montoya, keep Isaac on track, whatever I can do to ensure that the transit program is kicked off, the roundtable that we talked about, the Veterans Affairs issues that are talked about. So along with that, I hear a lot about the climate change. And yes, climate change is not today. It didn't begin this administration. It's been since I was a child. I remember the rains. I remember the floods. I remember the monsoon seasons. That is a blessing to have nowadays, right? It would be nice to have a monsoon to rain for a nice 2 days and sprinkle and cool the earth and drench her thirst. But because of climate change, tribes and small communities are being challenged by that. I recently visited a small tribe in the Pacific Northwest. It's a small tribe, very humble. They are 4 feet above sea level. So every time there's a surge, their entire community is washed out. And they are purchasing land in the mountains above them. So that's their goal. I stand with them on that goal. As expensive and lofty as that goal is, I know they can do it. And that addresses, how your goals and your strategic plans for your community is very important. establishing those master plans for streets, for culverts, for bridges, for infrastructure, so that when someone in my shoes come by again and say, you know what, Mr. Teller, here, this is our master plan. This is how much we expect you, just the whole booklet. Then I know that you are ready, that you have been ready, that the environmental's done, that the bio's done, that the right-of-way's done. That showcases to me a vested interest in getting this S word done, because that's all really important to me. Then it comes down to equity. Regardless of the jurisdiction, tribal, municipal, private, equity is very important to us here, particularly in rural communities. We, as rural members, I'm a rural community member, often see, for me in Navajo, that Window gets most of the funds, right? That's what we think, that's what I think. I know it's not true, but it's perception. But for communities in rural New Mexico, having to compete with grants with Santa Fe, Albuquerque, and the large communities, please continue submitting those grants. Do not be shy. Do not be shy. Work with your COGs, your RPOs, your NPOs. Work with the DOTs. Work with the agencies. Ms. Sonia Smith, yesterday, Cabinet Affairs for Veteran Services. Gosh, I was getting chills on her responses and how serious she was and stern and in responding to a question. That's who I would go to and say, hey, I'd love to help, get your help, let's go partner something. So working in a partnership manner is very important. As I said to my family, and when I was at Navajo DOT as their director, partnership creates innovation. So we're a lot of creative people out there, and I'm sure if we put our minds together, we can come up with phenomenal, innovative ideas. Which brings us to the discussion of resilience. Country folk, we're really resilient, right? We're taught to wake up early in the morning, feed the animals through winter, rain or shine. If it's cold out, you better break out your gloves and bust the ice for the cows and the horses. Before the sun comes up, before the school buses, you can hear the school bus a mile away. I remember those days. Coming home, not diddle-daddling, feeding the horses, the cattle again, the sheep, the pigs, and everything else, chopping wood. So resilient is part of our DNA as rural community members. So we talked about the bill and what that created. In this presentation, the next slide, please. I have two websites, and this will be shared with everyone. The first one is on the NOFOs that are being released. That is important for you all to maintain some, a little flag so that you keep up with the tremendous amount of information flowing out of the administration. At least you know the NOFOs are ready to be released. The second one is the funding opportunities, right? For us community members, we want to know what's available, but the NOFOs will tell you when it's going to be released and what it's going to be doing and so forth. So if you click on the first one, for example, Isaac. There it is. No. There you go. You scroll down a bit, you'll see the notice of funding opportunities that go down. And one of them may catch your attention for your community. Click on that and follow the protocols and the parameters. If you have any questions, I have my name and my cell phone number so that you can call and I can connect you to the right mode, the right person, to ensure that you got the right information. Then I'll call you back to make sure you did get the right information. So that little, for me, that large cloud of DOT, at least you have a face with it now. A shiny Navajo 5 red face, you know. So there's 2 sites there. The third site I want to share about is the, which I think will be tremendously useful, is the Federal Highway Emergency Relief Program. And I have here today a wonderful colleague, Ms. Jolina Palau, who is with Federal Highway. And next week we'll have another meeting with tribes. With the Emergency Federal Relief Program, the governor for non-tribal communities, governor or leadership have to declare an emergency declaration. For tribes, the tribal leadership can call the emergency declaration to receive and initiate that program. The conversation is ongoing, particularly with us folks here in rural communities. And tremendous amount of resources are out there. Now, my concern for us, in all honesty, is how do we get you the money you need? How do we get you the services you need? Now, that's a question between DOT and yourself, DOT and your legislators here in the beautiful roundhouse, also at the federal congressional delegation level. So with that, I sincerely appreciate you all. Thank you. The information being shared here today and yesterday is dear to my heart because it was full of passion and emotion and common sense. So yeah, thank you. If there's any questions, I don't know if there's time, but I'm available for any questions. I'll be sitting right next to children. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. This past legislative session, actually not this session, but the following session, a legislative bill came before the floor. And this new position was created, and actually Carol Miller was very instrumental in creating this rural equity ombud position. Shauna Sasser has really taken a large leap into a pool that is very unknown. We know that the needs are great. We know that the challenges are great. But working with many unincorporated communities, incorporated communities, trying to find how best we can represent our rural communities has been her task. And so please help us welcome Shauna Sasser as she shares her job and how she can link you to state government. Everybody, Shauna Sasser.
It's such a pleasure to be here today, and thank all of you for coming out amidst the fires and all the commotion and your busyness of your lives to participate in your conversations around rural communities and how we can help them. And I so appreciate your voices coming to the table yesterday and sharing with us your experiences and how we can make rural communities better. I also wanted to take a moment to really thank Representative Montoya and Chairman Casados and all their staff for the hard work in putting this together. So my official title is Rural and Frontier Equity Ombudsman. Yes, it is a mouthful, so I'm just pretty much called the Rural Ombudsman. And the task of my position is to really elevate the voices of rural communities in both the state and the federal level. And I laugh because right now nothing is off my purview. In 1 week I dealt with cows being shot on the mountains to access to health care. So everything I am seeing, and I'm getting out and meeting with communities and hearing their concerns and how they feel like we need to move the state forward in rural issues. So as we move forward, listening to everything we heard yesterday, last night I was really thinking, like, what's our next steps? What's our action plans? How do we actually pull our communities forward? And I really think as a community, we need to start pushing for policy, legislation, and change around the systematic issues that we see. We heard yesterday about how the red tape bogs local community governments down. And we really need to start looking at that and detailing that and coming forward with ideas and plans and how we can that red tape to get funding and resources to our small communities. As I've met with communities around the states, I've heard from county managers, Shanna, I don't have the money, the time, the resources to apply for grants. I don't have project managers to manage the grants, even if I get them. And, you know, we see at the Department of Finance and Administration, we see money going back to the government because of these same exact things. So we really need to start thinking about the systems within New Mexico. Our mutual domestic water systems need support. We have a lot of elderly people out there trying to keep water flowing, crucial life force, and they need support. We need to think about our Council of Government offices and how we can support them. You know, so many of our offices now are overwhelmed with workloads and they don't have the additional staffing to apply for grants. They don't have project managers to manage the grants. And that's now, and we haven't even started on the infrastructure funds yet. So I really want to challenge you to let's start thinking of this as systems and how we can work together and collaborate to improve the systems. Because if we don't fix our broken systems, our state is never going to move forward. And listening to yesterday, I was so just appalled at how we were all okay with the fact that we have volunteers running a lot of the emergency medical services in our rural community. That is unacceptable. There is nobody in this state that shouldn't have access to emergency medical services and healthcare, period. So we got to really think about our systems because our systems are broken in this state and we really got to work together and focus on that. And part of focusing on that is doing our homework as leadership in rural communities. I have met with elected officials that have a heart for their community and they want to serve their community, but they have no understanding of how to get the finances to their community to help with situations. So if you are an elected official in an office, I encourage you to learn about all the funding options and what your office can do to go after these funding options. I encourage you to learn about fiscal solvency and how to create a fiscal portfolio for your community so you do have a budget that's in compliance so you can apply for grants. You do understand how you can use the local, state, and fiscal coronavirus funds to build a hospital if you need to. So there's a lot of things that we can do as leaders to really educate ourselves to help propel us forward. So, you know, as a person who worked in higher ed for a long time, I'm going to encourage you to encourage yourself and the people that you work with to better understand the systems and how we can use that collaboration and momentums to get the systems to work for the benefit of our rural communities. So I am going to be here all day long. I have lots of cards. I love meeting with people and hearing your concerns and how I can help you find funding and resources for your community. So please look for me. I have on the white blazer today, so I'm easily seen. And I'd love to get together with you and learn more about how I can help advocate for your community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shauna. So this is a perfect segue into funding. How best do we deploy those assets into community as quickly as possible? So today we are pleased to welcome two analysts from the Legislative Finance Committee, as well as Donnie Quintana, who is the Director of Local Governments Division for DFA. Donnie, if you can come down up in the top. We have Monica Beta from the North Central Economic Development District, as well as Priscilla Lucero from the Southwest COG. If you all can join us in welcoming them.
So while they get seated, I think one of the biggest challenges that we face is the idea of how best do we navigate the partners and politics of funding. I think a lot of people assume that capital outlay is the end all save all of that process. It is kind of like throwing a penny into a wishing well and hoping that your project is funded. So this is why we have the folks on the panel today. Number one, the COGS will help us look at federal funding. How best can we leverage our grant opportunities? LFC will talk about the long-term funding processes of HB2. How do we fund a project from start to finish? And Donnie is going to explain how best, when that money is allocated, it gets into your community and what the compliance issues are. So we'll start off with LFC. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that funding starts at the beginning of a legislative session. Can you please explain to the rural leaders how the budget is prepared and when they should start positioning themselves to look at funding for key critical issues within their rural community?
Sure. Thank you. I'm Callie Carswell. I'm here with my colleague, Nina Chavez. We are LFC's capital outlay analysts. So capital money for local projects mostly goes out through the annual capital outlay bill. As if any of you have submitted those requests, you're probably familiar with how they get to your members. It is important that your members don't first hear about these requests at the very beginning of the legislative session. There's a lot of demands on this money. Everybody wants it. There's never enough to go around for all of the requests. So to set yourself up for success, it's important to start talking with your senators and representatives as early as possible in the interim about your priorities, what needs in your communities these projects would address, and kind of where the project is at the point you're requesting funding. There are also occasionally opportunities outside of that capital bill to get capital outlay money. One of those this year was the junior bill. About $50 million went out to local projects through that bill. That money does not always exist. So it's not a dependable source. As you know, capital outlay money itself is not necessarily a dependable source either, because the amount of revenue that's available varies a lot year to year. Basically, how the junior bill works is it's sort of, I would say, in terms of what you need to know, it's kind of similar to the capital bill, that if you are going to get funds that way, it's important that your senators and representatives know about those projects early. How that works is essentially if there's money for it, each chamber gets an amount, and then it's up to those chambers to come up with a process for members for requesting funds. A couple of things I just wanted to kind of mention big picture too. Of course, we know that there's a lot of money out there now for infrastructure. Traditionally, money has been a big limiting factor in what we can accomplish. And I would say that's at least a lot less true now than it was in the past. So the challenge, Donnie might talk about this too, is now how do we make sure we're able to use those funds and to use them effectively? The system already is sort of reaching kind of a capacity for the number of projects it can handle. I think that's true at the local government level, at the state agency level, the agencies that are responsible for administering these projects, and it's also true in the private sector. You know, we have a limited number of engineers and construction firms that can do this work, and they've got a lot of work right now. So what does this mean for us going forward? It means that we need to be really conscious of prioritizing what we fund in the future and trying to fully fund those projects and make sure they're as ready to go as possible. For local projects, that often means that you've done the planning before you come to the legislature asking for capital outlay money. There are sources of state support in the form of grants through NMFA to do that planning. The planning helps you kind of scope the project, know what you need to do to address the need, and know how much it will cost. So you can come with realistic cost estimates when you're looking for capital outlay money and also really make an assessment of how much capital outlay might be able to pay for. It's pretty rare that it can fully pay for a project. So it kind of you need to think of it as a piece of the puzzle, not the entire puzzle. On the back end, as I mentioned, we're in a lot of conversation with DFA right now about what the state can do to help move the projects we already have out there so that local governments and state government have the capacity to take on more and be able to take advantage of all federal funds that are going to be available to us for the next several years. On that front, we think it's really important that everyone that's involved in these projects really takes ownership over them and takes ownership over, focusing on getting them done and making sure that this money that we have the opportunity to use now is actually being put to use to meet the very real community needs that are out there. So at the local level, that could mean potentially staff doing regular monthly or quarterly reporting to governing bodies about where the capital projects are at. At the state level, Donnie can probably talk about some of the things that could be done for the state to help provide better support to local governments, to help with some capacity issues and keep projects moving along. It applies to legislators too. Part of our job is to keep them informed about where their projects are at so that they can take an active role, not just in providing the funding, but afterwards in helping to move those projects along. So I hope that answers your question.
That's perfectly. Thank you so much. So one of the things that we hear in rural New Mexico is that there's an inequity in the funding process. That capital outlay, while you have larger cities are asking for money for a soccer field, many of our rural communities still have depleted water systems, sewage systems, and other challenges that are really a necessity for life and have not been funded. And sometimes it takes 10 years, 12 years, 20 years just to get that system in place. Donnie, this is a question for you. How best can we solve that inequity? And what do local leaders need to do to ensure that they are compliant with DFA regulations?
Good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Donnie Quintana, and I serve as Director of Local Government Division, and it's a pleasure to be here with you all this morning. And, I echo the sentiments that I know you all are extremely busy. As I led troops in Afghanistan, I would tell soldiers, the frontline soldiers are where the change happens. And you all are those frontline soldiers that really make the change that we want to see in New Mexico happen. So the fact that you can take time out of your busy schedules to be with us this morning is a great pleasure. I just would like to start off with a couple of quick things. The first one is really a change of mindset. I advocate and suggest to folks that the models and solutions that we have used across the state that met needs of the 2007s, the 2000s no longer are applicable and no longer work for what the needs are for today. So being creative and forward thinking is where we need to go, and addressing models and building systems that allow us to really address the needs of today and more importantly tomorrow. I often suggest to folks, it's the ability to look around the corner that allows leadership to be successful. So here we have an opportunity to look around the corner to be able to address the needs of tomorrow. And I think this quote kind of really references what I'm talking about. And it says, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But by all means, keep moving forward. And that was Martin Luther King. And I think that's kind of where we're at with the state, is some folks are able to run with these projects and have the means and the capacity to continue to do them, and others don't. You heard Shanna, and by the way, Shanna is part of the local government division and works with us within the division, so it's a great resource to have. But to get to your specific question, Isaac, I think the reality is this. You get to a point where you'll have oversaturation. Right now, the local government division, we are overseeing $501 million of local projects that are 3 or 4 year projects across the state. And that ranges from a variety of categories, from water, and I mean water both from supply for potable water. And appreciate Shanna's comments, because I keep suggesting that our most precious commodity is water. And if we have a nonprofit framework and system on how we deliver water, maybe it's something we should really take a closer look at. But in addition to water, we have public facilities, we have recreational facilities and things to that nature. So that kind of comprises the $501 million of what I refer to as 3-year and 4-year projects. That money is already out there. Those grants are already executed with local governments and DFA. So the challenge we have and the opportunity we have is to figure out how we collectively work together to ensure we can bring those projects to successful completion. And that's kind of what Kelly was alluding to, is how do we work collectively together? And part of that is focusing on project management. And I recognize that that's kind of a unique mindset, change in mindset, when you come from the angle of just the volume of work you all have down at the local level. How do you get to a point where you build capacity? Larger organizations have the ability to have project managers. They have a team. They know how to execute projects. I will suggest, ascertaining that PMP certification is extremely advantageous. And one of the things I keep advocating for is how do we get that? How do we get resources to you all so that you can build your team and get that capacity and that competence and that proficiency level to be able to bring these projects to complete. This little button, my thumb's going to sleep. But the reality is you just can't be the folks down at the local level that are responsible for reading the water meters and then given a $50 million project to oversee. Those are special skills that you need to be able to have, right? And ascertain. So I think capacity, what we're doing at the state level, working in conjunction with our LSC partners, is really talking about how do we build that capacity at all levels? How do we build it at the legislative level? How do we get it at the state level? How do we get it down at the local level so that we can incorporate all the tools we need to bring these projects to completion? As a suggestion, things like utilizing Gantt charts, PERT charts, so that we keep projects on budget and we keep them on schedule. And more importantly, we have the ability to deconflict whenever there's a pressure point on a project. So we're really developing systems that we can adequately take a look at data. And I often suggest to you all, taking a look at raw data is just raw data. You really got to convert that raw data with analytics into useful information so you make informed decisions about how you want to move forward. And part of that is really just kind of managing the expectations and making sure you have all the stakeholders at the table to manage these projects. So we talked about the money that's currently sitting now out in local governments, coupled with the fact that there's $1.7 million of ARPA money that has been allocated or appropriated with the legislature, and the governor has executed by signature of the budget in House Bill 2. And that's kind of formula funded money that has come to the state. And it's been divvied up to appropriate agencies, i.e. the environmental department has some of that money, the Office of State Engineer has some of that money, DFA has some of that money for very specific purposes. And then the third part of the money is the $3.8 billion that we're hearing about, that is the infrastructure money. And that's yet to be divvied up within the federal agencies and determined which federal agency is going to oversee that, but that money's in the horizon. So what I suggest, getting back to the question of capital outlay, if you think about the fact that those folks that participate in ISEP, we currently have $6.3 billion worth of projects submitted in ISEP. That is reflective of the needs of your communities, whether you're a local municipality, you're a county, you're a tribe, or you're a special district. $6.3 billion of projects already identified that you all are requesting funding in support of. And what was requested in this year's capital outlay is about a little over 5 million. And when you think about the fact that what was given out through capital outlay was a little over $1 billion, the reality is capital outlay is not going to be the means to support your projects. What we got to do a better job of is finding out how we use that formula funded that has gone to agencies to meet the needs of your projects, as well as non-discretionary funding. How do we apply for grants? How do we ascertain the funding to match the matching requirements? And the Deputy Secretary was alluding to the fact that, that is a challenge for some of our rural communities. I will tell you that we have been requesting, and thanks to the legislature, DFA was successful in ascertaining $1.5 million this year to be able to help you all with a match. We will be unveiling that process, and it's kind of a two-pronged effort. The first one is, how do we get you the capacity by allowing you to access some of this money to build and hire grant writers and project managers? The reality, it's a pipeline, right? I mean, we have to work with our local universities to ensure that we have people that are getting trained on grant writing, because that's a very special skill set. We got to support the COGs because they obviously have a large piece of that. And how do we continue to give them the resources so that they can apply on your behalf for some of this money? You know, 40% of all federal money is non-discretionary money. And the state of New Mexico typically leaves that 40% on the table. We are really good at making sure that we get the money that is discretionary funding or formula funded money that comes to the state, and it comes to every state. And again, this goes to my comment about changing our mindset. You know, capital outlay is the best form of money because you ask for it, you get it, you sign an agreement, and you just execute it. Some of this other money takes a little bit of work. Anybody that has submitted a grant understands that it's a time-consuming process. You got to have those skill sets to do that, but that's kind of the wave of the future. And then in addition to being successful of getting the funding, you have all those reporting requirements that the federal government requires you to comply with. So thinking about that as you build capacity. So what I'm suggesting is that we take a holistic, comprehensive view of how we fund projects. I would suggest to you that this formula funded money that is currently sitting at state agencies be one of the means. Let's determine what programs can meet what needs. And then beyond that, what can we apply for in regards to non-discretionary funding? In addition to that, I would suggest to you that we have the bonding capacity down at the local levels. Right now, counties have about 82% bonding capacity available to issue tax-exempt bonds to generate revenue. I recognize sometimes that's not the most popular option because it is debt financing, but some communities across New Mexico do a tremendous job with that, i.e. the city of Albuquerque, Village of Ruidoso, and a couple others do a really good job of using that in their portfolio. And the last one is definitely looking forward to the money that's coming down the pike in regards to the infrastructure money. I would suggest that we also think creatively. We recognize the state of New Mexico is in a drought. We've been in a drought for 10 years. What if? Just open your minds up to what if the possibility that we would engage in projects like building underground storage for water when we have years of good runoff, that we would store potable water underground and we'd have the ability to pump it when we needed it. That's kind of revolutionary. You know, so I think as we look at this infrastructure money, I would suggest or advocate to you all that you open your minds and think about what would position your communities not to meet the constituents' needs of only today, but of the future and tomorrow. Okay. But I think, I hope I answered your question, Isaac. I know that was a lot of information, so thank you for entertaining me with all that. And definitely here to support you. I want you to know that local government division views you all as our partner. And it's great to have the LFC as a critical partner with us on this. And I think collectively we can get there. It's just working comprehensively together. How do we coordinate? How do we collaborate? And how do we ultimately get New Mexico where we want it to be? I would suggest to you that New Mexico has some very intelligent, capable people. There's no reason why that we can't get to where we want to get. So with that, thank you, Isaac.
Thank you, Donnie. We appreciate that. One of the biggest challenges, and this is for both Priscilla and for Monica, is the capacity issues. And how best do we prepare for the grant process when communities do not have a grant writer on staff? Can you please help us succinctly explain what the COGs are for those that do not know? I guess, how many of you know what a COG is in the state of New Mexico by the raise of hands? So it looks like pretty much everybody does. Okay, so those that do not, can you precisely tell us what it does and how best you can support rural communities getting funding into New Mexico?
So my name is Priscilla Lucero, and good morning to everyone. I just want to tell you a little bit about my history. I cover the counties of Catron, Grant, Hidalgo, and Luna, but I also want you all to know that I do chair the State Association of Councils of Governments. A 34-year career in working with the most rural and frontier areas in every aspect you can imagine. And I also feel like it's really important for me to have taken charge of being a representative of various efforts, whether it's in health, whether it's in housing, whether it's in literacy, whether it's working with mutual domestics, to really make a difference. Because what I have found through my career is that those most rural and frontier communities, when I started my career in the late 80s, that they were not being represented and they were not being heard. The other thing I wanted to share in that regard is that many of the federal dollars when I started my career back then were being reverted back to the federal government for that reason, because nobody knew the grant process, nobody knew the funding mechanisms and how they could actually tap into the sources. But the one thing that I've got to say with that particular process is that it took me a good 15 years to develop the relationships, to understand the different funding mechanisms, to be able to interconnect those funding agencies or those funding mechanisms, to look at it from a much bigger picture, right? And looking down to be able to make that change. So as councils of governments, our goal is exactly that. And the way that I can best describe it is for us to be the people at the local level, hand-holding you through those processes, because it takes trust from our local elected officials. It takes trust from our residents to be able to make that difference. So I can tell you, I've dealt with every piece of rural issue that I can tell you, from fire to cesspools, to every piece that you can possibly imagine, frontier, border communities. Colonias is one of my specialties. That's how I got my start, and I'm very grateful for those opportunities. But one of the things that I really want to share today and how we do that better is that there's a huge learning curve to that. And just as you get somebody trained with what's within a local government or any other agency, is that those people then leave. So then the challenge then becomes for those who have capital outlay funds, that person leaves, they don't even have a clue that there was capital outlay dollars funded. And so the one thing we do bring to the table is that consistency. So if they can reach out to me and tell them, here's all the projects you have open, this is the deadline dates, let's sit down and let's talk about that. But it's much more than that. The other piece to that is that I handhold these communities in developing their capital improvement plans, because it doesn't just start right before the session. It starts with the capital improvement planning process, understanding that process, understanding the funding mechanisms that are coming down, understanding where to place them in priority order. Because I will say that what I encourage based on the funding that I know for my region, because they may be different from region to region, is that if I know that the most that a legislator can commit in funding is about 200,000, there's by no means I'm going to put a water project as a priority when I know it takes $2 or $3 million, because then we're putting our legislator at a disadvantage, right? But there are other funding mechanisms that are out there that most people would not know how to do because they don't really know how to do it, right? So I challenge, that if agencies could look at us as those people, whether it's federal or state, that we are the people on the ground doing the hand-holding. So a couple of things I just want to mention from a much bigger perspective, and that is, as agency to agency has their different funding opportunities, the one thing that's really difficult for them to see, that is by no means their fault, because they're specifically dealing with their funding source, is that these communities, the most rural and frontier, they're maxed out in their debt, because every funding source that they go to, they have no more debt capacity. They don't have debt capacity. They have no more match, because they're trying to match every single funding source. And at some point, they can do it no longer, right? And those are much bigger picture thinkings from the ground level, what we're seeing in the communities. And then you add the staffing issues within that. And then trying to say, how do we resolve an issue now where you have supplies an issue, We can't find architects, we can't find contractors, we can't find any of those things. And it takes creativity every day to help these most vulnerable frontier communities who have no capacity just to deal with that project implementation. And then the last thing I'll say in that regard, so I can pass it over to Monica, is that getting a community ready to be able to apply for funds is a lot of where we need to improve the capacity. So, and most recently, we had a private water system turned to a mutual domestic. It's taken me months to work with that community to teach them how to develop a resolution, how to comply with open meetings, how to comply with open records, how to make sure they're reporting on the executive order, how to run a meeting, Robert's Rules of Order, how do you deal with conflict resolution? And that's just one entity, and we're covering regions. And that's our everyday work. So I just want to say, but before I pass it on to Monica, and we could probably go on and on about this, but I just want to say thank you to all of you out there who do your job every single day. Because as a person who's done it for years, nobody knows better than the COGs who are at the local level, who are dealing with these challenges. And Mr. Montoya, Representative Montoya, excuse me. But I've been one of those individuals hauling water because they can't drink the water because it's contaminated. And they're elderly and they can't pick up a pail to put water in their sink or their toilet to be able to flush because they have no help. Those are the things that we get up and we do every day for the betterment of our people. And we have to continue that forward. So thank you to all of you who, whether you're a legislator, whether you're an elected official, whether you're a staff person, because none of what happens in the communities could be done without you.
Hi, everybody. I don't have to press a green button. Yes. Thank you, Priscilla. My name is Monica Abeta. I'm the Executive Director of the North Central New Mexico Economic Development District. And so we're the Council of Governments for this part of the state. We work with, thank you, North Central, work with Santa Fe, Rio Arriba, Los Alamos, Taos, Colfax, Mora, and San Miguel counties. And of course, you know, our hearts are really heavy right now not to have some of those communities in the room with us because of what they're dealing with on the ground. So I just want to say that. I want to recognize my staff in the audience, Christopher Madrid, Aiden O'Hara, I don't know where Aiden went, and I don't know if Felicity and Allison are with us today, but we've been here, you know, the past 2 days, and we look forward to talking with you all. I also just want to say thank you to the Rural Economic Opportunities Task Force, to Representative Montoya for having this event, and also to Representative Armstrong, Senator Pinto, Representative Lujan, who all served on that task force and really spent the last year shining a light on the rural issues that Priscilla just talked about. So I think we should give them a round of applause. Thank you. So, you know, Priscilla, I think, covered the various things we do every day that, you know, extend from helping people with funding to actually go on site and sometimes doing things that are way outside of the box of a typical government worker, or maybe not. I mean, all of you in rural communities do that stuff every day. So you know what we're talking about from very firsthand. We're basically regional public bodies within the state government. We represent multiple counties, and our members and board members represent those local governments in our region. And I think rather than recover the stuff that Priscilla talked about, you know, we help with capital outlay, ICIP, competitive federal funds like EDA, USDA, also federal funds that flow through the state like CDBG, water and wastewater funds. And we also manage the regional transportation planning organizations and the MPOs. So, you know, we handle, I guess you could say that we're like the hub for infrastructure funding. We do a lot of different things, and we have to package a lot of different sources up. And basically we're here to help you package that funds up for your different projects and get things done. Like Donnie was saying, move things forward, keep moving things forward, having projects start and complete and move our communities forward. I'm just going to talk about what we're doing right now with the bipartisan infrastructure law funding, just as an example. I think a lot of times we have to take creative approaches to actually get things done. So, I just want to say that legislators in our region worked really closely with us to kind of craft a strategy about how we make sure that the most rural and frontier communities have access to the funding that's coming down. So I have to recognize, Representative Montoya, Representative Herrera, Senator Jaramillo, and Representative Castellano, who all took money from their House Bill 2 junior funds and basically appropriated those to North Central so we could hire grant writers next year to assist our communities. We have already done a request for qualifications. We have 5 grant writers identified. We know this isn't just about having one grant writer. Can you imagine the traffic jam that would occur with that? So we have 5, there'll be 5 on-call grant writers at our organization. Also with that money, we're able to maintain our current staffing levels. Right now, we have 2 additional staff members that are funded by CARES Act funding from the EDA, and that money goes away at the end of June. This money is going to enable us to keep those 2 people on staff. So it's increasing our staff capacity. So we'll have 6 people in our community development department. We'll have these grant writers on board. We also have a very creative transportation planner that went out and got some additional money for like design and engineering support. So, this isn't to actually design out the project, but we all know that you need cost estimates and a lot of technical skill really to put together your budgets and your scope of work for infrastructure projects. So we also intend to have like an engineer on an on-call contract to help our local and tribal governments. So we worked hard at this over the past year. It was originally going to be something that came through the Rural Economic Opportunities Task Force, didn't quite work out that way. So we had to rally to really pull this off. And we're looking forward to this great partnership with our legislators and our communities. And hopefully we're going to see a lot of great investment in our region because of the forward thinking that our legislators did this year. So thank you, Isaac.
Thank you, Monica. We appreciate that. They will be doing a breakout session at 2:30. So for more information, they can go a little bit more in depth on how that process works and how we can help you get that appropriate funding, as well as a discussion on community and schools, which also relates back to our behavioral health discussion and those challenges that we face within our local communities. So with that, we've covered a lot of information. What I would like to do before we break in about 10 minutes, we have Tomasitas coming in today for everybody. We have enough individuals, gallery, anybody else, you're free to join us. So we will have lunch provided for everybody in the rotunda. We only have about an hour before we have to be back in here at 12:45. All right. So just as long as I have your agreement that you'll be back by 12:45, that'll be good. The second part of this is what I'd like to do in the next 10 minutes is we're going to start on this corner because I'd love to see who is here. But before we do that, I do want to introduce Senator Shannon Pinto from the Navajo Reservation is here. We have Representative Tara Lujan in the back again. Representative Gail Armstrong once again. And Representative Montoya up in the front. A number of his colleagues will be joining us this afternoon, so you will see a whole new slate of legislators that will be moving in. Representative Herrera just let us know she will be here at 12 o'clock. We have Representative Andrea Romero coming in. So there's quite a few that will be coming in and out, various senators that will be coming in as well. So thank you so much, Senator, for being here today. I know how long of a drive it is to really talk about this issue. So there is a microphone on everyone's table. So if we can start in that far corner, way in the back, if you can introduce yourself really briefly, your name and the organization you represent, please. And make sure you hold down the button.
So I'm Diane Hamamoto, the Director of Grants and Community Impact at the Santa Fe Community Foundation.
Thank you, Diane.
And I'm Sandra McCardle. I wear many hats, but I am here with the Southwest Cooperative today.
Good morning, Camila Romero with the New Mexico State Land Office.
Good morning, Mark Myers, also with the New Mexico State Land Office.
Nate Downey with Lettuce, etc.
Good morning, Jonathan Martinez, Acequia Program Manager with the New Mexico Interstate Stream Commission.
Larry Dominguez, Division Director, New Mexico Department of Agriculture.
Pamela Skinner, Community Wellness Council, Valencia.
Nathan Dial, River Stanch, New Mexico.
Let's go ahead and go all the way down. Go ahead. Just press the button now.
Camilla Bustamante, and I'm with the Regional Development Corporation, and I'm also running for District 3 County Commission, Santa Fe County.
Representative Tara Lujan. I represent House District 48 in Santa Fe County.
I'm Scott Berry, City Manager, City of Raton.
Excellent. We'll introduce the Film Prize junior students later. Go ahead, sir.
Dios Arturo Archuleta with the New Mexico Land Grant Council.
Hello, Allison Nichols with the New Mexico Municipal League.
Hi, John Garcia, Secretary of General Services Department, State of New Mexico.
I'm Lisa Faithorn. I'm with the newly forming Southwest Regional Hemp Cooperative.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Christiane Harvey. I'm the Community and Economic Development Director from the thriving desert metropolis of Deming, USA.
I'm Consuelo Annan. I'm here from the Alcalde Erosion Committee.
Elsie Casados, the support staff.
Ron Casado, support staff.
Teresa Seenster, I'm with the Tri-Chapter Health Impact Assessment Committee as a researcher. Valerie Rangel, New Mexico First.
Good morning, everyone. Debbie Ortiz from the heart of the state of New Mexico, Torrance County, with the Partnership for a Healthy Torrance Community.
Good morning, Stephanie Reynolds. I am with the Torrance County Health Council.
Good morning, my name is Patricia Dominguez. I'm the State Director for USDA Rural Development here in New Mexico.
Good morning, Erica Vanakout with Help New Mexico.
Make sure you push the button. There you go.
Hi, I'm Tamara Rosenberg. I'm a community activist in Columbus, New Mexico, down by the border.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Chris Bryce, Luna County Manager.
Good morning. I am Ismania Porras, and I am with the Luna County Health Council.
Good morning. I'm Alex Sexsmith with Sexsmith Arts.
Hi, I'm Junko Nagal, new resident to Santa Fe.
Hi, my name is Lisa Trujillo, and I'm with the New Mexico Behavioral Health Planning Council, the Rio Arriba Health Council, the High Road Artisans also, and the Weaver in Chimayo. So.
Luke Renner, San Juan College. I was also appointed by Governor Martinez to the Film and Media Council, and then to the Film and Media Council by Governor Grisham. I served 4 years, and I'm here just representing, well, San Juan College Film and Media, and then I've gone ahead and worked with Moore County and Colfax County trying to connect those groups, and we have what's called the Greater New Mexico Media Collective. Wanted to go and keep rural out of it and focus on the greater number of people that are in the rural areas of the state.
My name is Bruce Dates. I'm from Raton. I'm a concerned citizen, senior citizen, and veteran. Thank you for having this conclave, everyone.
Thank you for your service.
Good morning, Christopher Madrid,
Community Development Director, North Central New Mexico Economic Development.
My name is Ernest Sanchez. I'm mayor from Clayton, New Mexico. That's in the northeastern part of the state.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning, everyone. Matt Miller from Congresswoman Teresa Ledger Fernandez's office. Thank you for having me.
Good morning, everyone. Chris Lindeman with Eastern New Mexico University.
Good morning, Philip Mortensen, Sierra County, Mayor of Elephant Butte.
Buenos días, le de Dios. I'm Patricia Trujillo, and I'm the Deputy Cabinet Secretary of Higher Education.
Montoya, I'm a rural citizen of Rio Arriba County, and Representative Montoya's big brother.
Good morning, everyone. Ramon Lucero with the Regional Community Assistance Corporation.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Carla McWilliams. I'm with the Historic Preservation Division.
Buen días and good day. My name is Randy Sanchez. I'm a paramedic with the New Mexico Medical Reserve Corps. I'm also a candidate for sheriff for Rio Arriba County.
Good morning. I'm Yaha Aguilera, State Director for Education, Hunger, and Resilience for Save the Children.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Brandon Behringer, Digital Media Manager for Stagecoach Foundation.
Good morning. My name is Bianca Borg. I'm the Regional Planning Program Manager at the Mid-Region Council of Governments. I also oversee the Mid-Region RTO.
Good morning. Stephen Aldridge, Mayor, City of Jow. That's in the southeast.
Good morning. I'm Tim Hageman. I'm a regional rep for the New Mexico Economic Development Department, and I'm officed at Moore County.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here. I'm Senator Shannon Pinto. I represent District 3, which is about half of San Juan County and McKinley County. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Emily Gwajkowicz, Deputy Director of the Southwest New Mexico Council of Governments.
I am Will Weir, Restorative Justice Consultant and Criminologist. I'm a part of the Raton Adult Drug Court, and I'm also chair of the Colfax County Democrats at this time. Thank you.
Sarah Manning, I am with the Alliance for Local Economic Prosperity. We are statewide and we are teaching people about a public bank.
I'm Dominic Hale and I am a citizen of Raton.
Hi, I'm Christine Bustos and I'm a commissioner from Rio Arriba County, 25 miles north from here, all the way up to the Colorado border.
Good morning. My name is Evelyn Vinagrado, and I am the chair of the statewide Rural Caucus. Thank you for this presentation. It's wonderful networking.
Hello, my name is Paloma Flores with Groundworks in Mexico.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Anne-Marie McLaughlin with the Santa Fe Community Foundation. We primarily support the counties of Rio Arriba, Mora, San Miguel, and Santa Fe.
Hello, everyone. Daniela Joy. I'm a senior program coordinator with Groundworks New Mexico.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Kiana Stammer, and I'm the executive director of Stagecoach Foundation. And we provide free training in front of and behind the camera for New Mexicans to get access to our film industry that is coming here because of our tax incentives. And so I help create pathways into those big TV film productions.
Good morning, Glenn Hamilton, Sheriff, Sierra County.
Good morning, Teresa Quintana, Vice President with Health New Mexico.
Good morning, State Representative Gail Armstrong, District 49, which is soon to be with a new redistricting, the largest district in the nation.
Hopefully with pay.
I am Shoshana Silverberg. I'm a recent transplant to New Mexico. I'm a holistic lawyer and policy advocate.
And hold the button up.
Hello, I'm Rita Reeves. I'm the owner of Santa Fe Insurance Group, new president of Oaxaca Community Center, and older sister to Daniel and Roger Montoya. Morning, Carol Miller, General Gadfly, worked in state government, federal government, the White House, but started my first time here, my first session was 1983. And hopefully we're going to push through because we've been talking about the same things since 1983. Hello, my name is Tony Atencio, and I'm an insurance broker and a resident of Santa Fe. I'm here to listen, learn, and help, and I'm also Daniel and Roger Montoya's favorite aunt.
Good morning, everyone. Lansing Adams, Tourism Development Director with the New Mexico Tourism Department.
Good morning, everybody. Jonas Moya. I'm the State Executive Director for the Farm Service Agency.
Good morning, Cassandra Hartley, Health and Human Services Coordinator for Grant County.
Good morning, Rich Holmes, pastor of Las Placitas Presbyterian Church in Placitas, New Mexico, and I am not related to Roger Montoya.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shawnee Harvey. I work with the New Mexico Economic Development Department. I am the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Coordinator. But instead of saying all that, I am the Jedi Coordinator. So I'm here, here to support, here to help. Please find me if I can help. Thank you.
Yat Ehnana. My name is Orlando Teller, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Tribal Affairs, USDOT.
Yate, my name is Jolena Palau. I am with the Federal Highway Administration with the Office of Tribal Transportation. And there are 11 Federal Highway Program Agreement tribes in New Mexico. So I worked with those tribes and the rest work with the BIA.
I'm Joy Lucinda with the Community Grid Network. Good morning, everyone. Carmen Morin. I am the Bureau Chief with the Community Development Bureau with the Local Government Division with the FA. Have the pleasure of working with Mr. Donnie Quintana and the awesome Miss Dr. Shanna Sasser. Thank you all. And anything we can do to help at LGD, please let me know. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Shanna Sasser. I am the Rural and Frontier Equity Ombudsman for the state of New Mexico.
And then we'll go back over here and then we're almost done. Go ahead. You have a microphone. Just introduce yourselves one more time. Yes.
Okay. Monica Beta, Executive Director of the North Central New Mexico Economic Development District.
Priscilla Lucero. I'm the Executive Director of the Southwest New Mexico Council of Governments.
Good morning again, Donnie Quintana, Director of Local Government Division, and I would be remiss if I didn't do a little plug for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, which I oversee as the Director. Thank you.
Callie Carswell, Capital Outlay Analyst with the Legislative Finance Committee.
Good morning, everyone. Nina Chavez, also with the Legislative Finance Committee as a Capital Outlay Analyst.
Well, thank you all. I'm Isaac Dakota Casados. I am the current chair of the Native American Caucus. We do have individuals up in the front, so when we come back, we will have a wireless mic and we will introduce those folks up in the gallery. And I know Representative Montoya was out, so go ahead, sir, if you want to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Isaac. My name is Roger Montoya. I am a representative for District 40, which includes Colfax, Mora, San Miguel, and Rio Arriba. And as one of the architects of this incredible event, I want to thank every single one of you for your diverse voices. You're coming from all layers of state government, private citizens. This was designed as the People's Summit. And one of the most critical failures that I see, and I hate to be downer, but I've sat in my seat over there for 2 years almost. The voices of rural New Mexico rarely are heard. And even more rarely do laws become constructed in a way that actually takes that water to sink into the tierra, if you know what I mean, metaphorically speaking. The COG and Donnie and all the folks on this panel, you are las compuertas, you're the opening of our acequias, metaphorically speaking, and I thank you for the diligence, the insistence that we can be better. We must be better. And Mora right now and Las Vegas are emblematic of those deficiencies. We don't use that as a point to place blame, but to catalyze the love and the power of the people. So muchas gracias a todos ustedes. It's a deep honor to have you with us today. And lunch is coming up soon, right?
Lunch is going to be in 2 minutes. So before we do that, I do want to thank the Santa Fe Community Foundation, as well as the Lannel Foundation. If any of you have gone to the website, nmrulsummit.com, there is an actual streaming session that is ongoing. Yesterday, we had over 500 people streaming and viewing in. And so we have Winston, who is joining us. If you haven't seen his production, it is flawless. It is absolutely beautiful. So if you have an opportunity to go quickly and go look at what he did yesterday, we've actually categorized yesterday's session. So you can go back and refer to it for your own notes. We are also going to have somebody come in and get a printout reading so that you can actually go through the notes. So if you miss something, that will be in your email box, and we'll place that up on the website as well. So Santa Fe Community Foundation, Lannel Foundation graciously paid for today's streaming process over the next 2 days. So big round of applause for them. Lunch today is provided by Strategies 360, one of the state's leading entities. And we are grateful for TJ Trujillo and Jen Trujillo and their team for providing lunch from Tomasitas today. So committee hearing rooms for later this afternoon. So if you are looking at the communities in schools discussion, that will be in committee room 311 on the 3rd floor. And if you want a more in-depth discussion on funding by the Council of Governments, that will be in room 317. So 311 for community and schools, and 317 for Council of Governments. That will be between 2:30 and 3:45. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and break. We will be back here at 12:45 to listen to Yadel Casaparalta talking about broadband. So if you are a small community with less than 20,000 in population, she's going to tell you on how we're going to fund the broadband in your community, no expense paid. All right, we'll see you guys shortly.
projects are to be completed, done correctly is what needs to be done. And what's hard is with the constant changeover from those positions lacks long-term planning. And that's a state, government to government, community and county relationship that we all need to prepare and work on. Is continuing those types of efforts is long-term planning and continuity, because we start one project and it doesn't matter what part of the state, county you're in, we never fulfill that, and to start back from square one. And it turns into a situation of further conversation, further paperwork, more money being used up versus completing those projects and endeavors. So in my experiences, I will share is relationships, teamwork, and unity to get these tasks done. And I do know it's difficult at times to come up with a decision with 5-8 people to one room, but the common goal, I think, for the state of New Mexico and the tribes is just working together and get those objectives done. So that's pretty much where we're at. I think from tribe level, and I think from a state level, is just, getting over those hurdles and boundaries and working together.
Thank you so much, EDOC. So this is to our Film Prize individuals, and then we'll go to Ms. Calza Peralta to explain how we can link our communities back up in this broadband highway. So the film industry in New Mexico is now thriving in New Mexico. Over $1 billion in investment from Netflix. NBC Universal now has built a lot in Albuquerque. As young film student makers, what can the state of New Mexico do to support your efforts?
We've some really big things that could really help is just getting a lot of students more involved, more connections towards like studios, different camera equipment, camera gear to be able to understand a bunch of different camera gear, and just the connections and the way learning how to communicate with one another a lot better, so that way it helps a lot in the future, as whenever you communicate and be able to get to meet a lot of new different people.
Sorry about that. I also feel that if we have the opportunity for more teachers that can be brought to schools that can help with that, photography, filmmaking, any kind of digital kind of art. There's not very many schools that I know of that have this opportunity and get the chance to do stuff like this. Like Film Prize Junior in New Mexico was the first time it had been held here, and it was amazing. Once people were hearing about it, they were so surprised that we had this happening. And I feel like there's a lot of kids around New Mexico that it could be amazing for them, because not everybody's into the same things maybe other people are. And if we bring it to all of our community in New Mexico, it'll be a good thing. Communication wise, I can't think of the word at the moment, but it just can be a good thing.
Thank you so much. Ms. Calza Peralta, can you walk us through what the federal government is doing through your program to initiate broadband internet into rural communities?
Yes, we have, like I said, this is a really exciting time for communities to launch or expand or continue their high-speed internet projects. There's a lot of funding across the federal government And at USDA, we have been really lucky to receive additional funding from the bipartisan infrastructure law, specifically to one of our programs. But before we launch into that, I really wanted to say that a vision for sustainable economic development really begins with you. It begins with all of you in the room, and it starts with the heart of your community, right? And I think my fellow panelists have touched on this, right? It starts with the talents and the skills and the dreams that you all hold already, and you are the experts in your community and what they would like to build. I commend the summit to invite youth from your community. I think it's always necessary to make sure that rural youth voices are at the table to be part of this planning of the work that it takes to expand economic opportunity in your community. So congratulations for having them on the panel. And what I wanted to say is that also, when the community is ready to build, you need partners, right? You need partners and you need resources. And that's where the Department of Agriculture and the Rural Utility Service within USDA comes in. We are your partner to put into action that economic development vision for your community. We have 5 different programs at USDA that support high-speed internet service in rural communities of 20,000 people or less. And I would like to give a brief overview of 3 of the programs that I think will be of most interest to the audience. First is the Distance and Learning Telemedicine Program. And this program, what we call DLT, offers grants for the equipment that facilitates distance learning and telemedicine projects. So an example could be that a community wants to connect the doctors or the nurses in a specific hospital outside of the community and make sure that those telehealth services are available to their patients in the rural community, right? So we would finance and offer grants for the equipment that facilitates that telemedicine connection or that distance learning education. Another example I've seen is that community colleges wanted to make available certain classes, certain certificates to the community because there were a lot of students, older students that were interested, but they could only attend classes in the evenings or on the weekends. And so one of our DLT grants was able to facilitate that instruction to make sure that community members were able to access certain certifications. So those are some of the projects that could happen with the distance learning and telemedicine program. I highlight this program because we are planning the next application window for the distance learning and telemedicine program in late fall. So stay tuned for more news about how to participate in the DLT program. Another program that I want to highlight is the Community Connect program, which offers grants to extend high-speed internet service in communities that are completely disconnected. They do not have internet service. What is really unique about the Community Connect program is that it requires the awardee to offer free internet service at the community center in that community and at the critical community facilities for 2 years. So that means that if you are an applicant to the program and you get a Community Connect grant award, that you will be providing free internet service at a community center to that community for 2 years. I think this is one of the most unique programs across the federal government to make sure that that unconnected communities are actually able to connect to the internet. For example, you can connect a local recreational, a rec center, and make sure that internet access is available at that rec center. I also highlight it because the next application window is planned for late fall. So keep your eyes open for this opportunity from USDA coming down the pike. And finally, I want to highlight our Reconnect program, which is a program that under the bipartisan infrastructure law received almost $2 billion in additional funding. And it's a program that supports big infrastructure projects in rural areas. So if your community, your municipality, there's a nonprofit, there's a for-profit, there's a cooperative, there is an entity, an internet provider that is ready to extend big infrastructure and provide internet service in a rural area, 20,000 people or less, this would be the program for them, right? It's for the entities that are ready to be the internet provider and that want to construct or improve or expand high-speed internet networks in a rural area. And via this program, USDA offers loans, grants, or loan and grant combinations in areas that are 90% unserved. We actually just closed the third funding round for the Reconnect program and are currently reviewing applications to determine the awardees under this third round. And we are working really hard to open the fourth round soon. So there will be news on that coming down the pike as well. What I do want to highlight is that for the funding that USDA received under the bipartisan infrastructure law for the Reconnect program, it allows, it grants a waiver of the matching requirement to Alaska Native corporations, to tribal governments, and to projects that are going to serve colonias, which are unincorporated areas of town, or projects that are going to serve persistent poverty counties. So typically, an awardee to Reconnect that says, hey, I want a grant to build the internet infrastructure in this rural area and be the internet provider. If they want a grant, typically they have to match 25% of the grant award, but under the bipartisan infrastructure law funding, that is waived for Alaska Native corporations, tribes, projects serving colonias, and persistent poverty counties. So this is a really exciting development in making sure that funding for internet service, high-speed internet service, is available to all communities and that everyone can participate. So these are some of the programs that I wanted to highlight because it touches on different strategies to make sure that a community has the benefits of high-speed internet in their community. And I also want to highlight, like I said, there's a lot of funding across the federal government. Please see us as a resource to connect you with our sister agencies. There's one really excellent program at the Federal Communications Commission called the Affordable Connectivity Program. And this program helps low-income families pay for their high-speed internet service bill. So qualifying families can receive a discount of $30 on their monthly internet bill. And on tribal lands, that discount goes to $75. So it's a really important program to ensure that all communities actually not only have access to the internet, but can actually be able to use it in their home, right? They can actually afford it